I've been writing using that chat joint.
CHAT GPT. Why don't we talk about CHAT GPT right now? What do we know about CHAT GPT and what are we thinking?
I'm enjoying it as an inspiration for creative writing at this point.
Yes.
Think about something like, well, what would happen if X talked to Y about Z? And it'll write a conversation. Some of the stuff I'm doing is dealing with Japan. So I had a conversation going and I was like, hey, rewrite that conversation, but write it in a ranga, which is a Japanese poetry where they go back and forth talking to each other and they keep a theme throughout the conversation. So it did that too. It had character 1, he said his piece. Character 2 said his piece, and it was like 3 or 4 for each of them. So that was kind of cool.
This whole thing takes me back to the worst of the Avengers movies, The Age of Ultron. And in that movie, there was a part where Ultron came from being kind of self-contained to getting access to the internet. And that was one thing that struck me about Chat GPT is it does not have access to the internet. So if you ask it about something current, it's like, I don't really know what that is, B. I could talk about historical stuff and maybe some kind of, last 10 year stuff. But if you ask me about what happened yesterday in Ukraine, he don't know nothing.
We don't know anything after XYZ date 2021 or something like that on the home screen.
As an academic who is going into the classroom in a few days, I can tell you that I have to be aware of it in terms of how students are showing up. It really forces us as teachers to dig into our students' voices and know what their voices sound like. And like you were saying, because it's not able to keep up on things that are up to date, the old current events thing, it forces us to make sure that we're having students relate the historical stuff we're talking about. So I'm teaching a class called African American Experience at Highline College. Shout out to the Umoja program over there. So these historical aspects of African Americans' experiences, I have to put them and set them within a context of cultural events. Otherwise, a student could just have ChatGPT write the thing for itself.
They have thought of this and they have put some type of screener or ability for teachers to copy and paste the thing in there and say, what is the probability that this was generated by AI?
Yeah, and that's one of the counters. You can take one of those sites that test for plagiarism because those things are consistent. Unless you do like Brent was talking about and you have it, put it in the form of a Japanese cipher, a hip hop cipher, right? Unless you take it and put it in some other form and then do it yourself. If you use it as a muse, I think that's a fantastic way to use it. I have no problem with students using it as a muse, taking themes, using it to organize their writing. I think that's dope. If they're trying to turn it in as their own work, then obviously that's plagiarism. If you do 3 students in a class, because of algorithms and because it takes a while to update, it can't be on current events, I can probably spot the fact that 3 people wrote the same damn paper in a voice that I've never heard them speak or write.
It should be in Old English. Hark, I say.
Right. And especially a class like African American Experience, right? Because you're talking about centering Black voices. And this just takes the internet. Well, the internet is going to be a significantly white voice and set of experiences. So imagine taking AI, and now here's again one of the ways that we can interrogate it. We can look at it in class. We can say, okay, is it actually inherently racist, right? Or not necessarily racist, is it inherently white supremacist? Does it naturally center white experiences and white voices? I'm assuming the answer is yes.
The answer is absolutely yes, for sure.
I mean, could you ask to write it in a Black vernacular?
That would be horrible.
Fascinating because you're talking about going back. So it'd be like,
well, let's go to the videotape. Let's go to the videotape.
You're gonna do it right now, aren't you? I know. Look at you. You're gonna do it right now.
Here it is. You dig these jive
what y'all want to say? What y'all want to say?
They always get annoyed when you get British people trying to do Southern accents because they usually sound like a Confederate soldier or like Foghorn Leghorn. They're like, yo, they ain't got that one yet, man. They can do the New York. They getting to where they can kind of do a West Coast accent, but the Southern, man, they can't do it, man. It eludes that natural British vernacular. That's how you gonna sound trying to write in Black vernacular.
Lavell, are you aware of what Chat GPT is?
I've heard about it in passing to some various TV shows and so forth, but pretty much it is AI, as you say, writing whatever you tell it to write. I haven't used it.
Right.
And I wonder for writers, how much of that do you give credit to the AI program for helping you create your stories or whatever type of written material you are producing?
It's interesting you talk about that, Lavell. It's a great point because in a class, in an academic class, you've got to cite your sources. In education, for example, we use American Psychiatric Association, or APA, and I watched how each version has had to include a website, how you include different types of websites, whether it's a blog or whether it is a source like a newspaper that's cited through a website. News blogs, right? A Medium post, all of those different things have different ways that you have to cite them. And so now, how do you cite CHAT GPT as a co-author?
And it itself does not do references. And I think that's probably deliberate. It's one of the warnings it gives you is that this software could present data as fact when it's actually not. So depending on what its sources are, what version of the internet it was given privy to, and who said what. I actually really enjoy the thing. And I've been using several versions of it since before. Like ChatGPT is the one that has the most marketing, the most public face. But for the last couple of years, there have been a couple of the softwares that draw on the same database and software that we've been using it to write descriptions of teas on the Brooklyn Tea website. We use it to test different ads, social media paid ads. And I do it because I am notorious for hating to write cover letters. I despise it. I just can't do it. So I use it all the time. Now, if I'm writing a cover letter to a stranger, I'll go in to say, hey, write a cover letter to this person requesting a meeting for this and include my credentials, this, that, and the third. And it'll give me 3 paragraphs, 3 different versions of 3 paragraphs that I then kind of can pick and choose from. And now that's my framework. And that probably carries me about 70% of the way. Then I'll go through and actually write it over that. And it really is super helpful. So it's a tool that I enjoy using.
Well, here's your answer. Say, hello, guys. Good afternoon and welcome to the Black Futurist podcast in 1970s Black vernacular. What's happening, y'all? It's a good afternoon and we're glad to have y'all tune into the Black Futurist podcast. Inflection is mine.
Why you sound like, did Roland Martin's face pop up right next to it and start mouthing the word? Because it sounds like him.
Roland Martin.
Dude, you just recorded the intro for this show, sir. Afternoon, y'all.
Hey.
How do y'all do?
How's you doing,
Hey.
So, and that is the perfect segue into Kendrick.